In a 1960s poll, college students put him alongside Che Guevara and Bob Dylan as a revolutionary figure. He's arguably the flagship of an entire empire. And in over half a century of existence, the webhead has appeared in tons of film, television, and animation. This is Cinematic Spider-Man, the history of the wall crawler on film on a very special episode of Real School. Spider-Man has been an icon with children for over 50 years, but why is he so popular? In 1962, with the success of the Fantastic Four, creator Stan Lee was looking for the next great comic hero. Inspired by pulp magazine crime fighters and aiming at a new, younger demographic, Lee and artist Steve Ditko created Spidey, the first teenaged hero, when he made his first appearance in Amazing Fantasy number 15. See, before, there were teenaged heroes like Bucky or Robin, but they were always sidekicks. And that trademark teenage angst and wit has become one of the staples in Spider-Man legend and one of the things he's known for. But of course, there are several things he's known for, including a theme song. Could that original Spider-Man theme possibly be the most memorable TV theme song of all time? As if predicting the future with Disney, ABC produced 39 episodes from 1967 to 1970 of the first animated Spider-Man. But the original animated TV show wasn't the only time that Marvel brought exposure to our favorite teen hero. After the success of the original, the Wallcrawler made several guest appearances on PBS's The Electric Company from 1974 to 1977, which was actually a mix of animation and live action. 4 years later, Marvel wanted to rebrand, and so they re-edited and added to the original animated show in order to garner interest from major networks. Well, it worked, as later that year in 1981, NBC created Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, teaming Spidey with a veteran X-Man and some new characters. In the early to mid-80s, and with the disappointment of films like Superman 3, no studio or audience really wanted to go near superhero films. You would think that would kill almost any momentum that Spider-Man had, and it almost did. Well, the Web-Slinger came back bigger and better than ever, when in 1994, with a larger budget and storylines that stayed closer to the original material, they produced 65 episodes through 5 seasons of the new animated Spider-Man. After that, animated Spider-Man just couldn't seem to get into a rhythm. In the 21st century, we were given Spider-Man Unlimited for only 1 season. The 3D computer-generated Spider-Man the New Animated Series only got 13 episodes. The Spectacular Spider-Man, which took a new diverse approach to its characters, still only got 2 seasons. Most recently, we got Ultimate Spider-Man in 2012 with an uber-wisecracking Spidey even breaking the fourth wall. And also splitting Spider fans on whether or not it's a good show. Let's take a look at Peter's portfolio. What did the animated Wallcrawler bring to the Spider canon? Marvel always seemingly had faith in their franchises, and so created animated versions as soon as they could. This early and often exposure in the animated world obviously showed that Marvel had faith in Spider-Man, but also paved the way for the next logical step. As good as the animated shows were, there were some lesser attempts when it came to the first live-action Spider-Man. In 1977, CBS created 13 pilot episodes, with Nicholas Hammond starring as Peter Parker. Columbia then re-edited the footage to release 2 films outside of the US, with Spider-Man Strikes Back and Spider-Man: The Dragon's Challenge. And even with snappy titles like that, it didn't work out. Then there was a long period of time where audiences and studios didn't want superhero films. But the real story is what almost happened. In 1985, Canon Films, which brought us films like Masters of the Universe, had a 5-year limit to make a Spider-Man film, and so brought legendary filmmaker Roger Corman on board. And in those 5 years, some of the truly worst ideas of all time were thrown around. That included a Wolfman-esque Peter Parker who turned into a mutant tarantula, Bob Hoskins as Dr. Octopus, and even Tom Cruise as Peter Parker. Yet other brilliant filmmakers didn't want to be outdone when it came to bad ideas. Concurrent with the Canon debacle, James Cameron in 1991 didn't want to be outdone, and so created a Spider-Man treatment that to this day still lives in Hollywood infamy. That included an insane amount of profanity, a sex scene between Mary Jane and Spider-Man, and Arnold Schwarzenegger as Doc Ock with the catchphrase, "Okie dokie." The nightmare that was Cannon Films and James Cameron ended in litigation hell, with a legal battle between Cannon, Carl Cole Pictures, 21st Century Pictures, Columbia, and MGM. It was like the Game of Thrones of movie disputes. In 1996, 21st Century Pictures, Carl Cole, and Marvel all went bankrupt. 3 years later, Marvel came out of bankruptcy, got the rights to Spider-Man back, and went right back to Columbia. So, what did it bring to the cinematic Spider-Man history? A little known part of this is that Stan Lee stepped in several times so that these crappy versions of the movie wouldn't get made. He quickly dismissed terrible ideas, even brought in writers so that fans could actually get the Spider-Man film that he thought they deserved. With Columbia finally calling the shots, it seemed that finally audiences did. It may have been a risky move bringing in Sam Raimi as the director of Spider-Man, because before Spider-Man, Sam could only be described as cult. After the success of X-Men in the box office, Raimi and Spider-Man had a tough act to follow, but Raimi proved himself, and his bright, visual, exciting style seemed to be a perfect fit and brought in a bigger audience. Taking in over $820 million worldwide, the risk seemed to pay off. Which meant it was time for the sequel, and just like Tim Burton in Batman Returns, Raimi was allowed a little breathing room and allowed to bring in some of his own personal filmmaking flair. Raimi proved that his over-the-top style, a mix of horror and fun, really could fit in seamlessly with this genre. Then, we all know what happened, and even the term just wasn't the same just doesn't cut it. It's hard to really pinpoint what went wrong with Spider-Man 3. Ultimately, though, it was a combination of things. Lazy writing, too many characters, inexplicable and unnecessary rewrites of the mythology, too many campy moments, and even Danny Elfman's score didn't return. All I know is an emo disco-dancing Peter Parker sure didn't help. Yet, even if Spider-Man 3 failed the fans, it didn't fail in the box office, raking in over $890 million, the most of the original trilogy. Clearly, the franchise still had a huge backing, and so there were talks of Raimi returning for Spider-Man 4, 5, and possibly 6. Those rumors were a lot of fun, with whispers of Dylan Baker's Dr. Connors finally becoming the Lizard. Also, friend of the show Bruce Campbell as a possible Mysterio, John Malkovich as Vulture, and even Anne Hathaway in another super feline role as Black Cat. Although ultimately, the studio decided it was time for a reboot. I was arguably the most excited about Marc Webb directing the reboot of The Amazing Spider-Man. Fresh off what I've called the best film of 2009, 500 Days of Summer, Webb would undoubtedly bring a fresh, new, and visual approach to an already established genre. Even though we finally got to see Lizard and Andrew Garfield turn in a brilliant performance as a troubled teenager, it still felt like something was missing. Although you have to give credit to Webb and the Marvel filmmaking team, as they wanted to separate themselves from the Raimi franchise, and that's exactly what they did. They took a brand new approach at Spider-Man and made it their own, which is what a reboot should do. As much as I personally didn't like the Amazing Spider-Man films, as much as I liked the original trilogy, okay, the first two, Webb's films have still been dark and vibrant at the same time with high-paced action, and with the series undoubtedly continuing, it'll be interesting to see what his future Spider-Man films will look like. Will it be the rumored Venom film or the Sinister Six? Either way, Spider-Man will continue being a part of our Saturday mornings, our movies, and our neighborhood. Poll question, what has been your favorite version of the Web-Slinger? As always, leave your answers in the comments section below. But until next time, school's out.